Hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of important locations for map-based questions which are usually asked in UPSC prelims. This particular episode is mainly for UPSC prelims 2020 because in prelims almost in every year we get to see that there are at least 5 to 6 questions comprising of around 10 to 12 marks which are asked from map-based question. So in our previous episode of map-based questions, there we had dealt with the continent of South America as well as some part of Central America as well. So today we'll start with another continent, that is Europe. This particular episode, it has been brought to you by Aptiplus Academy for Civil Services, and my name is Shayak Datta. I am the faculty for Geography and Environment at Aptiplus Academy for Civil Services. So let us start with our Europe, important places in Europe. So when we are dealing with these map-based questions and these important locations, it will be my recommendation that you sit down with your atlas. So whichever atlas you are carrying, be it let's say Oxford Student Atlas, or you might be carrying Orient Black Swan. So either of these two will be sufficient. So it will be better that you sit down with the atlas. So let us see the continent of Europe. First thing, if you look at Europe, there you will get to see the Atlantic Ocean, and Atlantic Ocean will lie to the western part of Europe. On the other hand, you will also get to see the Mediterranean Sea, and Mediterranean Sea will be found over here. Okay. So on one side you have the Atlantic Ocean, and on the other side inside you will have the Mediterranean Sea. So Europe, you will find Europe will be separated from Africa by this Mediterranean Sea. In between Europe and Africa, you will get to see that there is a narrow stretch of water body. There is a narrow stretch of water body which divides or which separates Europe from Africa. This narrow stretch of water body which separates Europe from Africa is what is called as the Strait of Gibraltar. Strait of Gibraltar. Okay. Now the thing is, you should be very well aware about these terms. Strait. I'll come to what is a strait in a while, but before that we also get to see that there is another area which is called as the Gulf of Bothnia. I hope you can find Gulf of Bothnia in the atlas. So what is this gulf? What is meant by a gulf? So a gulf or a bay is basically a water body which is surrounded by land on its three sides. So when you have a water body which is surrounded by land on its three sides, depending upon its size, it is either called as a bay or it is called as a gulf. Usually a bay is supposed to be a smaller version of a gulf, but then again we get to see that there are many exceptions to this particular rule. Apart from this, we also get to see that there is an important sea which is called as the Norwegian Sea. So Norwegian Sea is over here, Atlantic Ocean is over here, Gulf of Bothnia is present over here, and we also get to see another important sea which is called as the North Sea. North Sea is present over here. The North Sea, it is important for oil production. It has a lot of reserves of mineral oil. So North Sea, it is important for oil production. Okay. Now the next thing that we were looking at is straits. First of all, what is meant by a strait? A strait is a narrow stretch of water which connects two larger water bodies. Whenever you have a narrow stretch of water which connects two larger water bodies, then we will call it to be a strait. Similarly, when you have a narrow stretch of land which connects two large land masses, a narrow stretch of land which connects two large land masses, then it will be called as an isthmus. So please understand, the land equivalent of a strait is what is called as an isthmus, right? So over here we get to see that there are some important straits. For example, this particular strait that I just now pointed out to you, that is, it is the Strait of Gibraltar. And this Strait of Gibraltar, as you can see in the map also, the Strait of Gibraltar, what is it connecting? It is connecting the Mediterranean Sea. It is connecting the Mediterranean Sea with the Atlantic Ocean. So the Atlantic Ocean and the Mediterranean Sea, it will be connected via the Strait of Gibraltar. And since it is a water body, since it's a stretch of water, so it is actually separating these two countries, one is Spain and the other is Morocco. Okay, Spain and Morocco, they are separated by this Strait of Gibraltar. As you can see over here, Spain is situated out here and Morocco you'll find on this side, and these two are separated by the Strait of Gibraltar. Now this Gibraltar is the Strait of Gibraltar. Actually the name of the strait comes from the name of an island, and this island, it is controlled by United Kingdom. Okay, this island is controlled by United Kingdom. It's a very important location because this narrow stretch of water, it is connecting these two very important parts of the world. One is the Mediterranean Sea, the other is the Atlantic Ocean. Hence this particular area is of a lot of geostrategic importance, very important geostrategically. Next that you should be aware, next area, one is called as the Aegean Sea, the other is called as the Sea of Marmara. So we'll see just now Aegean Sea and the Sea of Marmara. Let us just try to find out the location of these areas. Now see over here, you will be able to find the Black Sea, and you will see that this particular area, that is the Black Sea, it is located near Turkey. Okay, so you will have Turkey and you will have Turkey is a country which is divided into two parts. One part of Turkey will lie in Europe, the other part, which is the major part, it will lie in Asia. We'll see more about Turkey. Actually, that part which lies in Europe is what is called as Thrace, and the part which lies in Asia is what is called as Anatolia. We'll come to that in a while, but before that, focus on this particular area, Black Sea. So you have the Black Sea, and below that you will get to see another small sea which is called as the Sea of Marmara. So you will have the Black Sea and you will have something called as the Sea of Marmara. The Black Sea will be connected with the Sea of Marmara through a strait again, and this particular strait is what is called as the Bosporus Strait. So Black Sea is connected with the Sea of Marmara through a strait which is called as Bosporus Strait. You should be aware of these names and which are the two seas which are connected by such straits. So Bosporus Strait, it connects the Sea of Marmara with the Black Sea. Similarly, another very important thing that you should be aware of is this, that the Sea of Marmara is connected with the Aegean Sea. So actually over here you will have the Aegean Sea, that is another sea over here. So the Sea of Marmara is connected with the Aegean Sea through another strait which is called as the Dardanelles Strait. Okay, it is connected with to the Aegean Sea through another strait which is called as the Dardanelles Strait. I guess you should be able to find it over here. So actually you have the Black Sea over here. Okay, here you will have the Bosporus Strait. This is the Sea of Marmara. Over here you will have the Dardanelles Strait, and this is the Aegean Sea. Are you getting it? So Black Sea, Bosporus Strait, Sea of Marmara, Dardanelles Strait, and then you have the Aegean Sea. Similarly, Black Sea is also connected to the Sea of Azov. Black Sea, it is also connected to the Sea of Azov, and in between the Black Sea and the Sea of Azov, you will again find that there is a narrow stretch of water body. This narrow stretch of water body is called as the Strait of Kerch, K-E-R-C-H, Kerch, Strait of Kerch. Right near the Strait of Kerch, you will find another area which is called as the Crimea Peninsula, the Crimea or Crimea Peninsula. So we'll deal with all this in a while, but before this, at the very beginning, just understand which are the important straits we have over here. So some of the important straits that we can see out here are: 1. The Strait of Gibraltar. One is the Strait of Gibraltar. Another that we have just now seen is the Dardanelles Strait. Now, why is this Dardanelles Strait important? Because as per the 1936 Montreux Convention regarding the regime of the Turkish straits, and this particular 1936 Montreux Convention, it is still in force, okay, and it gives Turkey control over the warships which enter these straits, but guarantees the free passage of civilian vessels during peacetime. Okay, so Aegean Sea and the Sea of Marmara. Aegean Sea and the Sea of Marmara, they are connected through the Dardanelles Strait, and what we get to see is this. Okay, over here it is Turkey which has control over the Dardanelles Strait. And why does it have control? It has control due to this particular convention which is still in force, and this convention is what is called as the Montreux Convention of 1936, also referred to or it is with regards to the regime of the Turkish Straits. It is still in force, and it gives Turkey control over the warships which enter into this area through these straits. Okay, but of course if it is a civilian vessel, then it is guaranteed free passage. So please remember the sequential order in which all these straits lie, and which are the seas which are connected through these straits. Okay, now moving on, I was referring to this just a while ago. Okay, Turkey, you will find that Turkey, it is divided into two parts. Let me show you over here. Turkey, as you can see, there is one part of Turkey which is lying over here, that is Istanbul area, and this Istanbul area, this is lying in the European part or on the European side, and there is another side which is lying on the Asian side. Okay, so Turkey, it is a country which is a very unique kind of a position, because one part of it is lying in Europe, and you will have also another part which is lying in Asia. Similar to what you can say is also the case with Russia. But anyway, right now let us try to understand Turkey. In this case, it is divided into two parts. One is the European part, and the European part is referred to as Thrace. Remember the term Thrace. European part of Turkey is referred to as Thrace. The Asian part of Turkey is what is referred to as Anatolia, or very famously also referred to as Asia Minor. You would see this particular term used in the history books time and again, Asia Minor. So whenever Asia Minor has been mentioned, it actually refers to Turkey. We have already seen that Sea of Marmara and the Black Sea, they are connected by the Bosporus Strait, and that is where we have Istanbul being located. Remember all these terms. Now, just again, some time ago, I was referring to the Sea of Azov. See over here, you can see it better in this particular diagram. You have the Black Sea, and to the northeastern part of Black Sea, you will have the Sea of Azov. Or rather, you can say to the northern part of Black Sea, you will have the Sea of Azov. So Sea of Azov and the Black Sea, they are connected via another strait which is called as the Strait of Kerch. Strait of Kerch, remember these terms. Strait of Kerch, it connects the Sea of Azov with the Black Sea. Now near this Strait of Kerch, you will have an area which is called as Crimea or Crimea. So this Crimea and Crimea, a very interesting thing is, okay, normally this Crimea or Crimea, it is a part of Ukraine. It is a part of Ukraine. But though it is a part of Ukraine, but actually we get to see that Russia has annexed it. So Russia annexed it in the year 2014, and currently it is under Russian control, though originally it is a part of Ukraine. So why did Russia go ahead, and why did Russia snatch this Crimea Peninsula? What is meant by a peninsula? Peninsula is basically a landmass which is surrounded by sea on its three sides. So why did Russia go ahead and capture this Crimea Peninsula? That is what you have to understand. You see, Black Sea is important for Russia. It is important for Russia geostrategically because it makes it much easier and shorter for Russia to reach Atlantic Ocean, plus it also becomes much easier to reach Indian Ocean. Otherwise, they would have to reach Atlantic Sea via the port of Murmansk. We will see where this Murmansk is, but first of all, try to understand why it is important for Russia to capture, or why was it important for Russia to capture this Crimea. It was important because it is because of its geostrategic importance. Now what happens is, if Russia has to reach the Atlantic Ocean, then it would have to go about in a very long route if it has to reach the Atlantic Ocean. On the other hand, if Crimea comes under its control right now, like it is under Russian control, then it will become much easier. The route will be much shorter for Russia to reach the Atlantic Ocean. So basically, from Crimea, it can go via the Sea of Marmara, and through the Sea of Marmara, the Dardanelles Strait, the Aegean Sea, the Mediterranean Sea, through the Strait of Gibraltar, it can reach the Atlantic Ocean. So that is one thing. And the second thing is that it also becomes much easier for Russia to reach the Indian Ocean also, if it has this particular area under its control. If this Crimea Peninsula, if it was not under Russian control, then Russia would have to take a much longer route. See over here, to the northern part of Russia, we have an area which is called as Murmansk. This Murmansk is an important port for Russia, but it lies absolutely to the northern part of Russia. And as a result, you can understand that this Murmansk port, it is present in the high latitude areas. Now automatically, if you are more or less okay with your understanding of geography, then you'd understand that in these high latitude areas, especially during the winter, it will be extremely cold. Not only is it extremely cold, but we get to see that most of the ports over here, most of the ports at these latitudes will be frozen and unoperational during winter. Because of the extreme cold, we will get to see that the sea will be frozen, and hence automatically the ports will also become non-operational or unoperational, because of the sea being frozen, and because ships will not be able to enter or leave the port. But very interestingly, we get to see that there are certain ports, even though they lie in these high latitudes, they still remain ice free during the winter. There are such ports where we get to see that though they lie in these high latitude areas, they still remain ice free during the winters, and hence they can be operational, they can be used even during the winters as well. Murmansk is one such port. Similarly, you will also have other ports like Hammerfest and all. Norway, in Norway we have another port called as Hammerfest. So these are some of the ports which will remain ice free during the winter, though they lie in these high latitudes. And the question is, how is it possible that when a port lies at such high latitude areas, how does it remain ice free? Please understand, it remains ice free because of the influence of a warm ocean current. It is only because of the influence of warm ocean current that it is able to remain ice free. See over here, I have given you the importance of this port of Murmansk. The port of Murmansk, it is situated on the Barents Sea. So over here you will find that you will have the Barents Sea, and the port of Murmansk, it is situated on the Barents Sea. Importance of this port, or the significance of this port, is the port of Murmansk, it remains ice free year round, mainly because of the warm North Atlantic current, or what we also refer to as the North Atlantic drift. So you will have the Gulf Stream. The Gulf Stream will be deflected to this area due to the shape of North America. The eastern coast of North America is shaped in such a manner that you will get to see that the warm Gulf Stream will get deflected towards this western part of Europe, and the Gulf Stream is a warm current. So this extension of the Gulf Stream into the western part of Europe is what is referred to as the North Atlantic drift. So automatically the North Atlantic drift is also an example of a warm current. It is mainly because of the influence of this warm North Atlantic drift that the port of Murmansk, the port of Hammerfest, such kind of ports, even though they lie in the high latitude areas, they are still they still remain ice free during the winter, and hence they are very significant for such countries. It is an important fishing and shipping destination. It is also the home port to Atomflot. Now this is very important, Atomflot. It is also the home port of Atomflot. And what is this Atomflot? Atomflot is the world's only fleet of nuclear powered icebreakers. So as you can understand, for any ship, if it has to sail further to the north, the seas and the waters will be frozen. So you will need another specialized ship which will be able to break the ice in order to allow other ships to move. So Atomflot is the name of the world's only fleet of nuclear powered icebreaker ships. ठीक है, so please remember atom float. And what is atom float? Remember, it is the world's only fleet of nuclear powered icebreakers. And please relate this term atom float to the port of Murmansk. Okay, so port of Murmansk you are clear about. Next, moving on to another important location in case of Europe is the Black Sea. Now, UPSC has this tendency of asking questions. For example, they will give you the random name for a particular sea or an ocean, or maybe sometimes even a large lake, and they might ask you, and especially those which have been in the news, and they might ask you, okay, which are those countries which border a particular sea. Okay, so they might mention the name of a sea, and they might then ask, okay, which are the countries, and they will give you a list of countries, and they will ask you, out of these countries, which are the countries which share its borders or which open out to a sea. So that is why when we are looking at the Black Sea, it becomes important that we understand which are the surrounding countries. So I have already given you the map, and over here you can see that the Black Sea, it is surrounded by which countries? One you can see is Ukraine. Ukraine is over here, and then you can see Romania is present. You can see Bulgaria is present. If you go to the south and the southwestern part, you will find Turkey is present. Okay? Turkey is present. Go to the east and you will find Georgia is also there. Georgia is present. And you go further to the northeastern side, you will find Russia. Now automatically you can find that there are some disputed areas, for example Crimea and all. These are the disputed areas which are there. So please remember, first of all, remember them in a clockwise or anti-clockwise manner. So when we are looking at Black Sea, it is bordered by Ukraine, Romania, Bulgaria, Turkey, Georgia and Russia. Apart from that, if you look at some of the physical features which are present around the Black Sea, again Black Sea is very important from our map pointing perspective, and questions are very frequently asked from this Black Sea. So please let us understand and remember the various features, geographical features which are found around this Black Sea. So you have some mountains which are named as Pontic Mountains, and these mountains, they lie to the south of the Black Sea. Caucasus Mountains will be present to the east, Crimean Mountains will be present to the north, Stranza will be present to the southwest, Balkan Mountains will be present to the west, Dobrogia Plateau will be present to the northwest, and you will also have a very wide shelf to the northwestern side. Very interestingly, we get to see another very important feature of the Black Sea, that is lower levels of Black Sea, that is the lower waters of Black Sea, they are usually anoxic. What is meant by anoxic? Anoxic means it is deficient or devoid of oxygen. Anoxic means, anoxic basically signifies that it is deficient or it is devoid of oxygen. And it is a very interesting feature that we get to see which happens in case of the Black Sea, that the lower waters or waters which are present in the lower levels of the Black Sea, they are devoid of oxygen, mainly because of the absence of water circulation between the upper and the lower levels of the Black Sea. So water does not circulate properly, and as we can understand, for any sea, it is the surface water which is exposed to the atmosphere. So that is why gaseous exchange will take place only in the surface water, and hence oxygen amount of oxygen in the surface water will be more as compared to the amount of oxygen which is present in the lower levels. But what happens is there is a continuous cyclical manner in which the water will keep on circulating, and as a result of which oxygen will get redistributed. But what happens in case of the Black Sea is that this cycle does not take place properly. There are many reasons for that, but right now let us keep it simple. Okay, the cycling or the cyclical manner in which the water should circulate, that does not happen, and as a result of which the lower waters, they are usually very anoxic in nature. Okay, moving on, another very important part of European area are the Baltic states. So there are many Baltic so there is a particular important sea which is called as the Baltic Sea, and the states, littoral state means those states which will share its borders. So you have the Baltic Sea, and there are a number of states or number of countries which share the border or which open out into the Baltic Sea. Such kind of countries will be called as Baltic states. Okay, so let us see that there are many such Baltic Sea littoral states. Okay, there are many countries which share its borders with the Baltic Sea, but not all these countries will be called as Baltic states. Please remember, there are many countries, as you can see from the map itself, okay, there are many countries which will share its border or which will open out into the Baltic Sea, but all these countries will not be called as Baltic states. All these countries will not be referred to as Baltic states. There are some very specific ones. For example, when we talk about Baltic states, we refer to only three countries. One is Estonia, one is Lithuania, the other is Latvia. One is Estonia, one is Lithuania, and one is Latvia. Now, very interestingly, we get to see that Estonia, Lithuania, and Latvia, all of these were part of USSR. So earlier we know that we had USSR, United States of Soviet Russia, and then it broke up, and now we have the the resultant state, which is Russia right now. So Baltic states are Estonia, Lithuania, and Latvia only. They once were a part of USSR, but now we get to see that they are under the influence of Western Europe. How do we understand that these countries are no longer under the influence of Russia? They are a part of, or they are under the influence of Western Europe, because right now we get to see that they are part of EU or the European Union. Not only that, they are also a part of NATO. NATO is the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Plus we also get to see that they are also a part of OECD countries. So OECD is the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development. Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development is OECD. Just to give you some more idea, because sometimes we get to see that UPSC will be asking questions based on international organizations, and when they ask you questions with regards to international organization, they will be targeting things like headquarters and members and etc. objective. So when we look at OECD, just to give you some idea, OECD has its headquarters in Paris. Remember this. OECD is the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. Mainly OECD are those countries which are very developed countries. Okay? They are very developed. They are economically very strong countries, and OECD, it has its headquarters in Paris. There are 37 member countries, but please remember, India is not one among them. India does not, or India is not a part of the OECD countries. Okay? So there are 37 member nations, headquarter is in Paris. And another thing that UPSC will ask you is, okay, what is the major objective? Why this particular organization was founded? So please remember, when it comes to OECD, it was founded in 1961. Why? To stimulate economic progress and world trade. To stimulate economic progress and world trade, it was founded. And all these Baltic states, OECD countries, etc., they are high income countries. These are high income countries. So what did we learn? Which are the Baltic states? We understood that those countries which surround the Baltic Sea, they will not, all the countries will be called as Baltic states. Okay? There are many countries which will surround the Baltic Sea, but not all of them will be called as the Baltic states. Only three such countries are there which can be called as Baltic states, and they are Estonia, Lithuania, and Latvia. Now moving on, another type of term that you will be hearing of is what is called as Balkan states. BALKN, Balkan states. Now we get to see that most of the countries except for Greece were governed by the communist regimes, and they were mostly puppets of the Soviet Union. So which are these Balkan states? First of all, what are Balkan states? Balkan states were mainly those countries which were under the influence of Soviet Russia, and all of them had communist regimes, and they were mostly puppet regimes. Puppet regimes means they were basically acting on behalf of Soviet Union or USSR, except for Greece. For example, Slovenia, Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Montenegro, Kosovo, Macedonia, Albania, Greece, Bulgaria, Romania, Moldova, all of these are examples of Balkan states. Remember, whenever you hear the term Balkan states, please remember that these were mainly governed by communist regimes, and they were mostly puppets of the Soviet Union. Here, very interestingly, we get to see that there is another country, or there was another country, now it is no longer there, Yugoslavia. Now, Yugoslavia was an exception. Why? Because Yugoslavia was not a puppet government or a puppet regime of USSR. Rather, it was a part of NAM, the non-aligned movement, of which India was also a part. ठीक है, Yugoslavia was a part of NAM or the non-aligned movement. India was also a partner to this NAM, but it had a communist government. Hence, it was backed by the Soviet Union and Soviet's puppet regime. So understand this: कि though it had a Soviet government, or though it had a puppet government, but still it was a part of NAM. So earlier, you know, the world was divided into two. There were two blocks. One is the capitalist bloc, the other is the communist bloc. And the communist bloc, it was mainly under the influence of USSR. But Yugoslavia, it did not join that bloc. Rather, it became a part of NAM, just like India. Okay. Now moving on, we get to see that till the First World War, there was a very powerful empire which was called as the Ottoman Empire. Till the First World War, we had a very important or a very powerful empire which is called as the Ottoman Empire. But then what happened? After the First World War, this Ottoman Empire and the territories which were under the Ottoman Empire, those were divided amongst the Allied powers. And that again led to something which is called as Khilafat movement, about which you must have studied in your modern Indian history. Okay? Khilafat movement, non-cooperation movement, all of these you would be aware of. So the thing is, this Ottoman Empire, its successor state is Turkey today. So the leader of the Ottoman Empire was called as Khalifa. The leader of the Ottoman Empire was called as Khalifa. And because Khalifa was the powers and the territories under Khalifa were taken away by the Allied powers, of which we get to see that even Britain was a part, that led to the Khilafat movement. And the reason is because the Khalifa was regarded as the leader by Muslims across the world, also including India. So today we get to see Turkey is the successor to this Ottoman Empire. And again, regarding Turkey, already we have seen that Turkey is divided into two parts. One part which lies in Europe is what is called as Thrace, and the other part which lies in Asia is what is called as Asia Minor or Anatolia. Moving on, all these Balkan states were once under the control of the Ottoman Empire. Remember this, all these Balkan states about which we just now talked about some time back, for example, all these states, Slovenia, Croatia, etc., etc., all of them were once under the control of the Ottoman Empire. These states went out of the sphere of influence of the Ottoman Empire and they formed independent states. Here another very important term is, sometimes you will get to see this in your world history and all, Balkanization. Balkanization, sometimes also called as Balkanization. What is this term, Balkanization or Balkanization? Ultimately the spelling might differ, but the term means, it is a geopolitical term for the process of fragmentation or division of a region or state into smaller regions or states that are often hostile or uncooperative with one another. Did you understand? Balkanization, when we say, Balkanization basically means division. Division of an area or division of a region or a country into many smaller parts, into many smaller component parts. And important thing is this, these parts or these component states, they will be either hostile to one another or they will not be very cooperative of one another. So they will not cooperate with each other. So after the Allied victory in World War II, we get to see Yugoslavia was set up as a federation of 6 republics with borders drawn along ethnic and historical lines. So after World War II, we had a country which was called as Yugoslavia. Yugoslavia, it was a federation of 6 republics. So there were 6 republics which together made up Yugoslavia. And all these republics, they were divided along ethnic and historical lines. Which were they? They were Bosnia and Herzegovina, Croatia, Macedonia, Montenegro, Serbia, and Slovenia. And today we get to see that all of them are separate countries. So as you can understand, just like Balkan states, here also balkanization had taken place. One large state had got broken down into smaller states, 6 small states. For example, Bosnia Herzegovina, Croatia, Macedonia, Montenegro, Serbia, and Slovenia. These are the component states or the successor state of Yugoslavia. And balkanization is not something which had taken place only in case of Europe. For example, in case of India, we also get to see that India, or what used to be India earlier, got divided into we have now Pakistan, we have India, and we have Bangladesh. So that is also an example of balkanization. Okay, so they are similar. For example, balkanization and Lord Wavell's breakdown plan of India, both of them are almost similar in their concept. The Wavell plan was first presented at the Shimla conference. This is just a little bit of history because it is related to this. So we'll quickly just try to recall what was this Wavell plan. The Wavell plan was first presented at the Shimla conference in 1945. Wavell plan was first presented at the Shimla conference of 1945. And it is named after the Viceroy of India. Who is that? Lord Wavell. It is named after the Viceroy of India, Lord Wavell. The Shimla conference was convened in order to agree on the Wavell plan for Indian self-government, which provided for separate representations on communal lines. Both the plan and the conference failed on account of the Muslim League and the Indian National Congress not coming to an agreement. So that is why Wavell plan did not ultimately worked out. So over here we will not go too much into the depth of what Wavell plan was all about and what it meant to achieve, etc. But just why I mentioned this is because we were talking about balkanization as to how a large state gets divided into several smaller component states which are usually hostile and not cooperative with, they don't cooperate with one another. Similarly, we get to see that what used to be India at one point of time got broken down into Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh eventually. Okay, now some current affairs. Certain parts of Europe were in the news. Many parts of Europe were actually in the news because of the coronavirus. We get to see that before coronavirus, it did a lot of destruction in USA or in Asia. Before that, we get to see Europe suffered a lot. Okay, so that you can follow in the newspapers and all. I'll just refer to some important issues which had taken place. For example, the Republic of Macedonia. What happened? Now, this Republic of Macedonia, it changed its name. That is why it was in the news. It changed its name to the Republic of North Macedonia. So earlier it used to be the Republic of Macedonia, but later on it changed its name to the Republic of North Macedonia. Now, why did that happen? That had happened because we get to see Greece. It had objected to its name. So पहले क्या था? पहले the Republic of North Macedonia, it had the name as simply the Republic of Macedonia. Now, Greece did not like that. Greece had objected to the name Macedonia. Why? Because the region of Greece which borders the Republic of Macedonia is also called as Macedonia. Greeks have historically regarded themselves as Macedonians. So historically Greeks have always regarded themselves to be Macedonians. And they considered themselves to be the descendants of Alexander the Great, Spartans, etc. So the thing is, somebody else was using that name, and hence the Greeks felt that their history was being tampered with. Their history was being taken away by someone else. So they did not like somebody else calling themselves to be Macedonians, whereas the Greeks believed that they are the original Macedonians because they are the descendants of Alexander the Great, Spartans, etc. Now, this dispute over the name wasn't allowing the Republic of Macedonia to enter the NATO. So Greek, they because they are a part of NATO, they thought of, or they decided that they are going to uh, oppose the entry of Macedonia into NATO. The condition was that they have to change their name. So once they did, once they changed their name to the Republic of North Macedonia, so Greece then said that they are going to support their entry into NATO. So this dispute over the name wasn't allowing the Republic of Macedonia to enter the NATO and the EU, as its accession to both organizations was earlier vetoed by Greece. So Greece was not allowing, Greece was opposing the entry of the Republic of Macedonia till the time that the Republic was willing to change its name. And now that it has, now it will get the support of Greece to enter into NATO as well as EU. Okay. Next, another term that we usually get to see is what is called as Nordic countries, and that is also related to some of the countries of Europe. So what is this Nordic country? Some of the countries, for example, Norway, Sweden, Finland, Denmark, Iceland, Greenland. I'll repeat once again. Norway, Sweden, Finland, Denmark, Iceland, and Greenland. These countries, they will have very high HDI, or Human Development Index score will be very high for these countries. So they'll have very high HDI. They are having high per capita income. So they are rich countries. The life expectancy will be very, very high. Why? Because they have very good medical infrastructure. High quality of life is there. Press freedom index is also very high. So basically, in most of the parameters which decide the quality of life, we will get to see that these countries, they will rank very high, even higher than countries, for example, USA and all. So you will have Norway, Sweden, Finland, Denmark, Iceland, Greenland. Some of these countries, they are having all these qualities. Such countries are called as Nordic countries. Such countries are called as Nordic countries. Please remember, Norway, Sweden, Finland, Denmark, Iceland, Greenland are called as Nordic countries. Now again, you might get a bit confused with another term which we use very, very frequently and interchangeably, and that is the term Scandinavia or Scandinavian countries. Now, is there a difference between these two terms, Nordic countries and Scandinavian countries? Let us try to understand. See, while the term Scandinavia or Scandinavian countries, it is commonly used for Denmark, Norway, Sweden. So when we use Scandinavia or Scandinavian countries, it is mainly used for only these three countries, that is Denmark, Norway, and Sweden. On the other hand, the term Nordic country, it is used for Denmark, Norway, Sweden, plus we also have some other areas, for example, Finland, Iceland, plus certain parts of Greenland, Faroe Island, and Åland Islands. So basic thing is this, that these two are actually different from one another. That is Scandinavian countries and Nordic countries. Both of them, yes, they will be having very high HDI scores. They are rich countries, life expectancy, medical infrastructure, education. All of these are very, very well developed in all these countries. But speaking of it geographically, there is a difference between the countries, or the countries that we consider under Nordic and the countries which we consider under Scandinavian countries. So Denmark, Norway, Sweden, only Denmark, Norway, Sweden, 3 countries under Scandinavian countries, and 5 Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Finland, Iceland, plus also we get to see that some parts of Greenland will also be referred to as Nordic countries, right? So here I have a diagram for you through which you can understand. So those which are shown like this, that is Norway, Denmark, and Sweden. Norway, Denmark, and Sweden, they are Scandinavian countries, plus they are also Nordic countries. Especially they are Scandinavian countries. If you look at only Nordic countries, then we'll find Norway, Finland, or Norway, Sweden, Denmark, plus Finland, Iceland, and also some parts of Greenland which has not been shown in this particular map. Okay, so just go through the difference. If you want to know more about the differences between Scandinavian and Nordic countries, I have given a link over here, or even you can just search for it. it is a link of India Today, where you can find the difference between Nordic countries and Scandinavian countries. ठीक है. अच्छा, next up. Some more important current affairs which were there in the news. We get to see Copenhagen was in the news, and Copenhagen was in the news because we get to see it is the capital and the largest city of Denmark. Copenhagen, what is the speciality? It is the capital and it is the largest city of Denmark. It is also an important port in northern Europe. And why it was in the news is because we get to see the C40 World Mayors Summit was organized over here. C40 World Mayors Summit was organized over here. We get to see that Indian cities which are a part of C40, they are Bengaluru, Chennai, Delhi, Jaipur, Kolkata and Mumbai. Very important that you remember. First of all, where did this C40 World Mayors Summit take place? It took place in Copenhagen. What is Copenhagen, or where it is? It is present in Denmark. It is the largest city of Denmark, also the capital city of Denmark. Okay, it is an important port town in northern Europe. Now C40 World or C40 World Mayors Summit, we get to see that mayors from some cities of India were also invited, which are a part of this C40 group. And which are those cities? One is Bengaluru, one is Chennai, Delhi, Jaipur, Kolkata and Mumbai. So you can understand that Kolkata, Mumbai, Delhi, Chennai, they already are amongst the largest metropolitan cities that we have. And apart from that, we also have Bengaluru and Jaipur. Now the question is, why Copenhagen? Why was it chosen, or why was it selected as the site for the C40 World Mayors Summit? You see, the people, especially in Denmark, as you can see that Denmark was a part of Nordic countries and all. So its people and businesses, they have done a lot to deal with climate change, and also they have done a lot to reduce their own carbon footprint. So when we say carbon footprint, basically that means how much of carbon is being emitted into the environment due to the various economic activities, etc. So we get to see that the people and the businesses over here, they have done a lot to deal with climate change in order to reduce their own carbon footprint. What is the objective of this C40 Mayors Summit? Main objective is to build a global coalition of leading cities, businesses, citizens that will rally around the radical and ambitious climate action our planet needs. So that is the main objective. Okay, it will try to build a global coalition of leading cities, businesses and citizens which will try to rally around the radical and ambitious climate action which is needed by our planet. Okay, and we get to see that it is present located on the islands of Zealand and Amager. Nearby countries to the north you will find Norway, east you will find Sweden, south you will find Germany. Nearby seas you will find Baltic Sea and North Sea will be present. Another very important area that we get to see over here is Svalbard, and Svalbard was also in the news. Now let us understand. Svalbard, which was earlier called as Spitsbergen, this is the other name that we use, Svalbard or Spitsbergen. So Spitsbergen or Svalbard, it is an archipelago, which means a group of islands. It's an archipelago in the northern part of Norway, in the Norwegian Sea. It is an island of Norway. It is close to the North Pole, which is close to around 80° north latitude. Now, why it was in the news is because it is the fastest heating place on earth. It is the fastest heating place on earth. Since 1970, what has happened is, on an average 4°C rise in temperature has happened over here. We can understand global warming, and you can understand that the effect of global warming is being felt so distinctly over here in Svalbard. An average of 4°C rise in temperature has happened over here. Almost 7° rise has taken place during the winters. As per the Norwegian Center for Climate Services, it will have an increase of temperature of around 7 to 10 degrees Celsius by 2100. So by the end of this particular millennium, 2100, we'll get to see, by the end of this particular century, sorry, 2100, we'll get to see that the temperature rise over here will be around 7 to 10 degrees Celsius. Svalbard is also important because it has the global seed vault. Global seed vault basically means that most of the important crops of the world, their seeds have been stored over here, because one, it has a very low temperature, it is very isolated, and hence it is believed that the low temperature also it is present at a higher height actually. So it is believed that even if the sea levels rise, even if global warming takes place, the thing is these seeds, they will survive. So in case if any plant goes extinct, it will be possible to again get back the plant, because the seeds are being stored over here. So the global seed vault is present over here in Svalbard. Acha. So we also get to see, that was also in the news, in Norway it celebrated the 10th anniversary of the official opening of the Svalbard global seed vault. It is covered by ice. It is a global seed bank. We know it is an example of ex situ conservation. I believe you are aware about what is in situ conservation and ex situ conservation. So this is an example of ex situ conservation, a seed bank. So this is a global seed bank. It is the storehouse of seeds of various types of crops from across the world. It is constructed on top of a mountain, so that even if the sea levels rise by a great deal, it will still be safe. Also, you can understand it is present at a very cold temperature, so that will help to preserve the seeds better. Another area which was in the news was Iceland. In Iceland, you have a national park which is called as Vatnajökull National Park. Ultimately, you have to remember the name, Vatnajökull National Park. And this particular national park, it was added to UNESCO's World Heritage Site. Vatnajökull National Park, it was added to UNESCO's World Heritage Site. Okay, so another reason why Iceland was in the news was because of a glacier. And this glacier is called as the Ökjökull Glacier, or simply called as Oke Glacier. Ökjökull Glacier or Oke Glacier, but it is not exactly okay. The thing is, there is some problem with this glacier. What happened? It was a glacier, which means it is no longer there. So it used to be a glacier. So there used to be a glacier called as the Ökjökull Glacier in Iceland, in Western Iceland especially. On top of the volcanic mountain, the name of the volcanic mountain was Oke. If you go there now, you will get to see that the glacier is no longer there. Instead of the glacier, what you have is a plaque. A plaque which has been placed where the Oke Glacier once used to be. And this plaque is basically in memory of that glacier which is no longer there. And it says that something has written on that plaque. It says that a letter to the future. And this letter to the future says that in the next 200 years, all the glaciers will melt just like the Ökjökull Glacier. Okay? So it basically says that in that plaque you get to see that there is a letter which has been written, and it is called as the letter to the future. So basically it says that, see, going ahead, we know that just like this Ökjökull Glacier which once used to be here, all the glaciers across the world will melt. Now now it says that only you, that is the descendants or our descendants, you will be able to know whether we did enough to stop the melting of glaciers or not. Okay, so it's this particular letter is what is called as a letter to the future. Similarly, in Europe, we'll also have an area called as Davos. So Davos is in Switzerland, and why Davos will be in the news every year, that is because it is the area where the World Economic Forum meets. It will conduct its summit every year in this Davos. Davos is a city in Switzerland. The World Economic Forum is also responsible for giving the terms like Industrial Revolution 4.0. Okay, so basically this WEF, or the World Economic Forum, it acts like a think tank. Plus, you will also find that Geneva, it is also present in Switzerland, and Geneva, you will find a lot of international organizations, a lot of international bodies will have their headquarters in Geneva. Okay, so Geneva will be present. If you look at the current affairs, then we also get to see that there was another reason why Europe was in the news was because of Monaco. And Monaco, what is the speciality? It is the second smallest country after the Vatican City. So Vatican City is the smallest country. Second smallest country is Monaco. Why it was in the news was because its prince came to India on his first official visit. France lies to the north of Monaco and the Mediterranean Sea lies to the south. So please remember, the Prince of Monaco had come down to India for his first official visit to India. We also get to see that there is another important area called as Hague, and this is lying in Netherlands. It has a peace palace which houses the International Court of Justice. So please remember, Hague in Netherlands. Hague will be having a peace palace. In that peace palace, we have the International Court of Justice, or ICJ. What is the speciality? It is the principal judicial body of the United Nations. So International Court of Justice, it is the principal judicial body of the United Nations. On the other hand, you will get to see another important term which will be seen in the newspapers: Permanent Court of Arbitration. Permanent Court of Arbitration, it is mainly for arbitration and other forms of dispute resolution between the states. Okay, so please remember that these two are different. So we'll have the Permanent Court of Arbitration, and we'll also have something called as ICJ, or the International Court of Justice, which is the principal judicial body of the United Nations. Also, we get to see that it also houses the International Criminal Court, but India is not a part of that. And this International Criminal Court, it was established under the Rome Statute. Why? To punish individuals, even the heads of the governments, for crimes against humanity, war, genocide. It also has the headquarter of OPCW. So Hague will also have the headquarter of OPCW. And what is this OPCW? Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons. OPCW stands for Organization for Prohibition of Chemical Weapons. It is an intergovernmental organization to implement Chemical Weapons Convention, which means no country can use chemical weapons. That is why OPCW is there. Okay, OPCW had earlier also received the Nobel Prize for Peace. That is why it is an important organization. Okay, so these are some of the important reasons why Europe was in the news. Of course, there are many other reasons, and you will be knowing more about it as you go through the current affairs, international relations, etc. So please keep on reading, and with that we'll conclude today's session of Europe, and we'll come back with another episode of important areas to tackle the map marking questions, or the map based questions for prelims. We'll come back with a new continent next time. So till then, study hard, stay safe, and thank you so much.
I'm an icon, man. And my girl about a 10. I should fuck her in the Benz.